We have our chat with Mike Silver every week right here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Sounds to me like you spent a good bit of time over the last week of your life with one Tom Brady, Mike. What were some of your takeaways?
Just on Sunday, but it was cool to catch up. We kind of laughed about the fact that I've been covering him for 23 years, which makes us both kind of old. And, it was not his favorite day of football, obviously. He was pumped to play in this part of the Bay Area for the second time ever only, and had 83 friends and family members up in the nosebleeds, ready to watch. And, it was a big game for the Bucs, and it obviously went horribly wrong. So he's a ruthless competitor. He was not thrilled. He's a little stressed out about the state of the team, but we talked about everything, including the specter of next year and what might happen. And I don't think he's going there yet, but it's looming.
And it's going to loom for everyone, depending on how Brock does, and if Brock continues to play well, if Trey Lance can get back in the fold. Maybe they don't need Tom Brady. How surprised were you that Tom issued or gave an autograph to Dre Greenlaw in the post game? That seemed almost unprecedented.
I mean, he doesn't get treated like the typical quarterback who just lost the game, that's for sure. It's what happens when you're a living legend, and nobody's ever done it at 45. So it's a trip. I mean, if Michael Jordan was still out there bawling when he was 45 at a high level, pretty much after every game, there'd be people trying to take pictures with him, et cetera. So, I don't think he loves post-game after he loses. He traditionally gets off the field very quickly. This time he didn't. And I'm sure he was seething inside as he graciously, said nice words to everybody and signed the football and all that. And he gets it intellectually. I mean, Dre Greenlaw is quietly one of the best players in the league this year, made an incredible play, is basically saying, like, yo, dude, we both do the same thing, but I'm putting you on a higher level, than the rest of us. And even though I was trying to beat you, I would love to have this memento because you represent greatness. So that's a cool thing intellectually. I just know how competitive he is. And the Jordan analogy is apt because, those who didn't get to experience Jordan up close saw it in The Last Dance. But, when you're maniacally driven and hyper competitive and have to define yourself constantly by, your ability to win games and other things, you're not happy when you lose.
Mike, there was certainly the insinuation in your article, and you're not the first one to bring it up, about the idea of Tom being a free agent next year and whether or not the 49ers would be a fit. Now, we're all getting ahead of ourselves with Brock Purdy, but if he continues to look the way he looks now, would that push any idea of another big-name quarterback being added to the 49ers next year? What do you think?
Well, I think it's all part of the equation, right? So if Brock Purdy keeps looking like this all the way through a Super Bowl triumph, then logic would suggest that you're going with Brock Purdy, right? So that would be the highest level. Let's say Brock Purdy plays pretty well, but there's ups and downs, and the season ends the way it did last year, where, he played pretty well, but, throws an interception at the end, can't bring him back. Is the fan base going to say, oh, he's just like Jimmy Garoppolo? Not that the fan base is deciding. So, I mean, there are gradations of this, and history did not begin 11 days ago, though some people like to, assess it that way. The 49ers would have the luxury of a bridge-type quarterback if that's the way they wanted to go. So, let's look at the four scenarios, right? And Brady, by the way, will be an unrestricted free agent. I believe, from talking to people who've talked to him, not necessarily from my conversation with him, that he's inclined to try to play in 2023. And I do believe, as with 3 years ago, he would have interest in the 49ers, if nothing else, just the attachment to his hometown. His parents are still in San Mateo, et cetera, et cetera. So if he had interest, and if he is coming back, if you're the 49ers, you go, okay, Jimmy played really well, and we loved it. We tried to get rid of him, at least once, if not more than once, and we can't tag him, and he's an unrestricted free agent, and somebody's probably going to pay Jimmy good money to be a starting quarterback. I think he's the least likely. Trey Lance and Brock Purdy you have under contract, and everything's fine. You have so much invested in Trey Lance that it's hard for me to think he won't at least be on the roster and have a chance to try to elevate. Brock Purdy has shown you something. You have no reason not to have Brock Purdy around. He's only going into the second year, and as you said, maybe he'll show you so much that you'll feel even more comfortable. But, it's not like you have Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, you're trying to decide, and, oh, yeah, you're bringing in Deshaun Watson. The idea of bringing in Tom Brady, who'd be 46, is still enticing in that scenario because it's obviously somewhat of a short-term situation. It's a bridge quarterback type thing. It's a unique opportunity. You have a talented, stacked roster that you believe can win now, and it doesn't cost you the evaluation of Purdy and or Lance, in the process. So that, to me, is something that's hard to turn down. And I know a lot of people are out there going, but Brock Purdy won. He beat Tom Brady. He's better. Look at him. And, hey, maybe history will show that Brock Purdy in 2022 is better than Tom Brady. I think that's a stretch. I think that would be hard, but maybe that'll happen. But if you're basing it on one game, you might not be evaluating it right.
Well, basing it on a game in 3 quarters in terms of the 49ers and Super Bowl possibilities, do you get the sense that they haven't really missed a beat in terms of in the locker room and their thinking as far as how far they can still go this year with Brock Purdy?
Well, I think they missed a beat when they saw Jimmy, leave the field. I think people were like, and I would include Kyle in that equation, like, okay, this is going to be way, way harder. And even though Purdy obviously played well against the Dolphins in the aftermath of that, people who spoke honestly were saying, yeah, it's going to be tougher. They're proud people and they're stacked and they believe in themselves. So it's not like they're like, oh, there goes the season. But, people who understand football were definitely thinking, yes, it's going to be tougher. They're thinking that a little bit less now, probably because he played really, really well in this last game. But again, Jimmy has played really, really well for stretches, and people are fond of reminding us that he is not perfect. So Brock Purdy's not perfect. That interception got called back. That would have been a bad interception. Brady's touchdown pass got called back. That would have been a more competitive game had that happened. So we want to see Brock Purdy when he's down 14-0. We want to see him on the road. We want to see him in a playoff game, ideally, and there's more evaluation to be done. But the bottom line is Kyle Shanahan, this is his job. He will make the evaluation. He knows quarterbacks. He knows what's right for him. I do know that they were really impressed with him, throughout the offseason and in camp. I do know he's got a real strong sense of self, young Mr. Purdy, and he's not, shrinking in the face of the opportunity. So all that's good. And remember, if they loved him as much as they are professing to right now, he would not have gone 262. They probably would have turned in that card, I don't know, maybe 3rd round, 4th round. So, and that doesn't mean they can't love him that much now. Just, everybody take a deep breath. It's a really good team. It's gone well. Of course, they are able to win the Super Bowl on paper. It's going to be hard. And if they are able to get to the Super Bowl, which would be a triumph with anyone at quarterback, you're going to see Purdy versus Mahomes or Purdy versus Allen or Purdy versus Lamar or Purdy versus Burrow, most likely. And people are going to go, yeah, I think the quarterback matchup favors the AFC. No offense.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Mike Silver with us here, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. I wonder by extension of that conversation, though, and again, we're still so early on Purdy, but it feels to fans like there's a characteristic building here, which is draft a player at a position kind of high and then grab somebody late or in the undrafted area, and it turns out that late guy is better. Let's go, if that is the way Purdy Lance plays out. There was the Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell draft. There's TDP to Jordan Mason. What do you think, Mike? Does a team get credit for what they found late, or do they get blame for making the wrong pick on the early end?
Depends how many games they win. For example, if the 49ers traded 3 ones and moved up to number 3 and took Trey Lance and he turns out to be a bust, that is a black mark. But if you win through it and you end up with a quarterback, all good. Another example, if you draft Cleveland Farrell, 4th overall, and miss on a bunch of high picks, but you get Max Crosby late and some other good guys, you're like, hey, I did the same thing. Look, I got good late picks. But you don't win, you are fired. So Mike Mayock was fired. John and Kyle will probably be in a great position if this year goes the way it seems to be going. So that's the answer. And that's why you don't frivolously, blow off late-round draft picks, because you never know, and that's why you take quarterback. But, it's not a great state of affairs for a franchise to invest that much in a quarterback with that high of a pick and have it not work out. And I'm not saying it won't. I'm just saying that would not be good for anyone. If you win through it, you get away with it.
Yeah, and leaning toward not working out, but still a lot left to be determined. If Purdy can't play Thursday because of the oblique, Josh Johnson starts. Has any team ever started 4 quarterbacks in a year and made it to the Super Bowl?
There was a stat. Sean Payton told me the stat himself, because he was going through it. When he started Ian Book, was that 2 years ago or last year, in a nationally televised night game when they had a bunch of injuries, he cited a stat to me, and I'm sorry, I don't know exactly, but how many has a coach ever won games with X amount of starting quarterbacks in 1 year? So my suspicion is probably not 4, but I am not a stat geek, so I'm going to have to leave that to your crack research team over there.
Thank you.
But I will say this. Josh Johnson is no joke. I will fight this battle, with anyone. I've known him since, he entered the league. He's been on 14 teams. I know a lot of coaches and talent evaluators who have said to me over the years, you know what? I'd rather have Josh Johnson than our guy right now. It's like Josh Johnson's good. You can win with Josh Johnson. He's smart. He can move. Like, a lot of people like him, and for whatever reason, it hasn't stuck. But he played well last year when he played. If he has to play Thursday, I believe he'll rise to the moment. And so that's a pretty good situation to have. And by the way, we're like, things are so accelerated now. We've gone from, oh my God, Jimmy's hurt, the Super Bowl is lost, haha, Brock Purdy's playing, to we don't need Tom Brady, we've got Brock Purdy, to is Brock Purdy durable enough to be a franchise quarterback, because he might miss his next start. So let's just go through the entire cycle and just speed right to his retirement. So.
The NFL's amazing, isn't it? I mean, every Sunday we come back Monday and life is totally different. It's totally different.
I will say this. So in 1989, I started covering the 49er beat at the age of 24 for the now defunct Sacramento Union. And Eric Wright, the veteran corner, esteemed corner who won 4 Super Bowls, was an incredible player, was all over me from day one, lovingly. We are still close to this day. But he was like, Silver, why you put so much, I'll say BS, why you put so much BS in the paper? Why you put so much BS in the paper? And finally I came back with an answer, and I said, dude, there's not enough games. There's 6 days between games. What else are we going to do? We got to come up with storylines leading in. And then I went to SI, and I only wrote every week. So it was awesome. I could kind of like wade through it and, only decide to write about what actually mattered. But, now obviously we have Twitter and, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we hyperventilate between these games, and that's why the games mean so much, because there aren't a lot of them. But yeah, people are freaking out. So I am here, an old soul and an old person, to remind you that history did not begin 11 days ago. And maybe that's why I felt comfortable talking to Tom Brady after the game, and maybe that's why he felt comfortable talking to me. But we might see it from a different perspective, and yet I know him. I know how maniacally competitive he is. I know this is ripping him up, and it's all crazy that he's still playing and he's still playing like this. And
Yep.
I feel like, what if Brady comes back here in the playoffs and rips everyone's throat out and wins again? I mean, if it was anyone else, I'd be like, no way, that team sucks. He's old. Like, the 49ers are too good. There's no way. It's not going to happen anyway with the seedings, et cetera, et cetera. But because it's him, and I've watched it for so long, I'm kind of like, the Bucs will slop into the playoffs. They'll beat the Cowboys in the first round. The seedings will work out. They'll come back to Levi's, and Tom Brady will throw for 2 touchdowns in the final 3 minutes and rip everyone's throat out. And it will just, that's just how it is.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm not ruling it out.
No, I mean, we've all learned. Assuming that Tom Brady is washed is like assuming that Jimmy Garoppolo won't be on the 49ers next year. It's just
don't do it. You can't risk
We're
it.
not going to make that assumption anymore. Hey, Mike, great stuff. Thank you for hyperventilating with us.
Hey, caffeine helps, but anytime.
Caffeine helps that's the shirt that I want.